So we're conducting an interview with, do you call it Andy or Andrew?
Andy.
Andy and Ryan Tibbitts today on July 16th, 2021. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves and just, I know we're on your property, but just say where you live in Marshfield and how long you've been here.
Okay, I'm Andrew Tibbitts, the son of Arnold and Colleen Tibbitts. I live across from the schoolhouse down there, and
On Hollister Hill Road.
on Hollister Hill Road. And well, actually they call it Taylor Farm Road now. And you know, it's
You've lived here all your life.
lived here all my life. You know, well, no, I moved here when I was a little over 2. My father had bought the farm, but we came from Brattleboro. He was working for the Holstein Friesian outfit, and when he got out of the service, he tested milk around here. And then he went to Brattleboro and was with the Holstein Friesian, and then he bought this farm from Leo Edson. And he knew Leo when he was testing the milk, and he told Leo if he was ever going to sell the farm that he'd like to buy it, and Leo held out for him on it.
And did Hollister Hill Farm exist at that time?
No, it was the Dutills up there when we moved there. Yeah.
And it wasn't a farm?
No, it was a farm.
It was a farm,
Yeah,
okay. It just wasn't called Hollister Hill Farm.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
And how about you?
I'm Ryan Tibbitts, Andy's son. I moved up here when I was 18, probably 2004 or 5, something like that. And visited a lot when I was a kid. We'd come up here and hunt and have supper with my grandparents almost every Sunday. So I didn't really grow up here, but I was here a lot, have roots here, so, but I've been here ever since, and it's where I'm raising my family now.
So did you raise Ryan in Barry?
Yes, I did.
So you grew
Yeah,
up here and then moved to Barry?
yeah, and then I moved back up here. Yeah.
And when was that? And why?
Well, I went through a divorce,
Okay.
and so I moved up here, and probably, what year would you say it was?
Oh geez, probably late 90s,
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. 98, I think.
98,
Yeah.
99.
So it sounds like you have lots of family here. Did you have brothers and sisters? So
Yeah, I've got 2 sisters. One's out in Spain and Ireland, and the other one's down in the Boston area. And she retired from Harvard at 52 years old, and she eventually would like to come back up into Vermont. She doesn't really want to be on the farm, but she'd like to find a place in Vermont.
she retired from Harvard, so she was
Yeah.
a professor?
No, she wasn't a professor. What was
She was in administration.
administration? Yeah, and my other sister is Spain and Ireland, and you know, she's.
Spain and Ireland?
Yeah, you go back and forth.
Back and forth.
Yeah, it's,
He's the baby.
I'm the baby, yeah.
So when you grew up, there was you and your 2 sisters and
Right.
your parents. Were there other family members here?
No,
Okay.
no.
Oh, his,
Well,
his
that's
grandfather.
Yeah, my mother's father was here for a while. And then finally, you know, he got really, really bad, so we had to find a place for him to be, which was sad. I don't want to see anybody go down that road, but
Yeah, so this is, your father is Arnold,
yeah, my father was Arnold,
and
yeah.
Paul will get some
He was in the
pictures.
legislature from 68 to 74.
Really?
Yeah, and a lot of times he'd call up and he'd say, Andy, start chores, we're going into overtime. And so, and that's when a lot of people were really moving to Vermont. And so, you know, when they'd get done at nighttime, they'd want to go out and go swimming in the indoor swimming pool and have some drinks. I said, I'm going home and help my kids start and finish chores, you know. But he had a really good,
Right, because he was
mindset.
local, he could just drive home.
Yeah.
A lot of the other legislators.
Right, yeah.
He was also on the town select board for Marshfield for quite a few years as well.
Over 20. Yeah.
Wow.
He cared about things, you know.
I mean, one of my questions was going to be, this might be a good place. What roles have you guys played in town? Have you?
I haven't, you know, at some point in time, as I got older and didn't, you know, bull and jam so much, I might think about something like that, you know.
Like a school board or a volunteer
It
or
wouldn't be-
something, or
Yeah, it's something,
fire
whatever,
department?
you
Well,
know.
the thing is with our business consumes a lot of our time, so, and then instead of having the luxury of being on the farm as our job and getting things done, we have to, in turn, because of working, and then we gotta come home and cut the wood to keep the house warm, put bandages on all the old buildings and stuff, so we're pretty stuck here most of the time.
We're fortunate for having this land, you know, to live kind of a natural life. I think we all grew up around a natural life. I know my mother was big time into the co-op before any co-ops are around here, and they bring up a bunch of flour and sugar and they put it on the table. You'd see these great big piles. There'd be like 2 other people with her, and they'd be, you know,
Measuring it out?
measuring it out and everything, getting everything going, and then you could eventually see it, you know, taken off. Just like my father was with the health center down there, he was very instrumental in getting that started. And it was where the old president's office was at Goddard College. And if you go down to,
In that main building,
Yeah.
right on the corner?
now if you go down to the new building, you'll see a plaque down there that says Arnold Tibbitts on it.
Okay, so what did your father do?
Well, he was a selectman, but he, you know, for the town of Marshfield, but he was very instrumental in getting all
Kinda
that.
championing.
Like career-wise, like what?
Oh, he
did
was-
you do for-
He was
Farmer.
a farmer.
Okay.
Yeah, when he got out of the military, he got into business with his brother that was in the Marines. And my dad was the oldest of 4 brothers. And they had a bottling plant for milk in Waterbury, and they had their own farm too.
So they came up from Brattleboro to Waterbury?
No, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I got that behind. That was first, and then he went down to Brattleboro.
Okay, okay.
But before that, he tested the milk, you know,
Okay.
and
And that was like a business for him?
That's
Like-
how, well, it was through the state, so
yeah.
that's how he found the farm, testing milk. He became friendly with Leo. that
Who was
owned
the
farm.
original owner?
Yeah.
So talk about the buildings. How many buildings between you have you got right here? They're all not adjacent.
Well, there's the farmhouse where I live.
Mhm.
There's what we call the gray barn. It's the old hay barn where they would have the dances and where Dad stacked many bales of hay over the years. And that was, I don't know, 1800, somewhere around there.
They built the barns, they always built the barns first, 1796 to 1797, then the house. And this is the oldest one standing in this, you know, in Marshfield. And I remember when there was a place down here and it fell down. And then there was the one up the road, the old Dutill farm. I always call it the old Dutill farm up the road from me there. And
Of course, we're sitting in the schoolhouse, 1853.
So this was after the barn. So the
Yeah.
barn was the first building, then the farmhouse,
Mhm.
and then the schoolhouse got built?
There was actually, according to my aunt, which there was a schoolhouse prior to this one across from where our pond is now that was brick. And the reason I found that out is I asked my aunt when she came to visit why there was so many bricks laying around. And she said that my grandfather used to plow them up quite often when he'd do the fields, and he would just collect, he used them for...
By the cemetery? That side
No,
of the road,
right
or-
above the pond.
Right
if you-
above.
Yeah, the pond that's on the corner, it was right adjacent to that.
And Townsend built this years ago. Townsend's an old name. If you look across from the health center, there's that old brick building, and that's where he lived. And I remember his wife, years ago, she was very, very elderly. She had this this building, and if they were putting on any plays or anything like this, people would go because they had all these old, you know, costumes in there and stuff, and you know.
And so you're saying there was a little brick building that Townsend built that was a schoolhouse?
No, that would have been, so it was prior.
Townsend built this one.
Oh,
Yeah.
Townsend built this one.
Yeah, so that one, I'm not sure the history on it. I just know that one time it existed. That's all. I believe she said it burned down. And if you look at some like that, there's a chest with the maps in it. It actually has scorch marks on it. So I was told that came out of the original one. And some, you know, there's a couple of boards here and there you can see that they utilized, I guess.
It came out of the original schoolhouse,
Yeah.
which was where?
Right, that one
That
was
was that
by the
one.
pond.
By the pond. Okay.
And then of course there's now the most modern building is Dad's house, which started off as a sugar house / hunting cabin and slowly became his house, the
Yeah.
second story and additions.
And these were big sheep farms. Back then it wasn't your dairy industry, and they were tied into the North Montpelier woolen mills down there. And I always tell people this story. I remember when I was a kid, you'd walk down there in between chores, or run down there and dive in, and there was turtles down there. You used to always like to see the turtles on the rocks. You could tell what they were using for dye out of the North Montpelier woolen mill. It was still going. And we got a hired man, Heelan, that lost his arm down there. And I remember he called up.
At the woolen mill.
Yeah, he called out my father's name, you know, because he'd worked for my father. And my father went down there, and they'd already had him in an ambulance and taken him away, but he'd lost his arm out of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the dye came in because of a pipe direct into the pond?
Yeah, nobody thought of it back then, you know, that's what they're using for dye. In the Union, the soldiers' unions uniforms were made, some of them made in that place down there. So.
And say what you said about being able to see.
Oh yeah, so the picture, yeah, there's a picture somewhere up at the farmhouse that I haven't seen it in years, but my aunt showed it to me. We have a little treasure trove of pictures up there, but it was taken from looking sort of west, from kind of east to west, from up near the corner of Hollister Hill and Taylor Farm, looking down this way, and it was just no trees. You know, you could see the top of the schoolhouse. I think there's one big maple tree down here. And of course that's what they use for their fuel and everything else. So, and with sheep being around, those trees were pretty, so you could almost see like into North Montpelier from that view, which is pretty cool.
We'd plow up a field and we had a stone bolt and a tractor, and we put it on that, and we made a humongous rock pile down there. And people used to, and everybody else around here did it, you know, the Newtons, the Dutills, everything. And everybody would say, God, that's a humongous pile like that. And we wouldn't stack it or anything. And then they'd say, that's incredible. And I'd say, well, you know, follow me around, because I could show them about 4.5 miles of stacked stone for a stone wall. And that's incredible. They didn't have the equipment.
You mean that were stacked up years ago?
Yeah, no, we're taking off to the field once they plowed it, you know.
Yeah, but years before you.
Years before, yeah. It's amazing how neat it was too. And if you go up to the cemetery,
The Hollister Cemetery.
the Hollister Cemetery, there's a lot of people in there, men, that died at 30, 35 years old. You know, and you just figure they worked themselves. You know, it's amazing the power that they had to have to build these buildings. And
You know, we were talking about that dig foundation.
Hand digging.
Yeah.
My foundation at my house is all hand dug, obviously, and field stone still, dirt floor, and
the granite steps, how'd they get the granite steps in there? You know, that's
no
pretty
tractors,
amazing.
oxen,
Oxen,
probably,
Yeah.
horses, whatever.
Everything was a major project, but they never backed off on it, you know, until it was completed and then on to the next one.
So when you moved into your house, is that when you moved up, Ryan?
No, so I would stay with Dad, you know,
Yeah.
usually all summer and then on weekends because I went to school in Barrie. So I'd stay with Dad, and of course up here was so much more fun. Dad had a four-wheeler, and you know, I had the run of the whole place. So.
And I was living here on and off for a while, and so that it was nice to have him up there because it was too big of a building for us, you know.
Great. So talk about, you know, what's your earliest childhood memory, and talk about growing up here. What was it like to grow
Oh
up?
boy. I remember being out in the barn, and we had a molasses barrel that we used to put on the hay. We used to put molasses on there. And
You put molasses on the hay?
yeah, to help the cows would start eating it and gave them certain, what was it, protein or something?
Minerals. Or
Minerals in
something.
it, yeah.
So you put it literally on the hay to
Yeah.
get the cows to eat it?
Yeah,
Oh.
and they loved it. And I'd go over there and I remember looking at it like this, thinking, boy, that is something special. And then, you know, I started learning how to wash cows' teats, clean the gutters, you know. And
At what age?
I would say I started in on that. I was always out in the barn around 3. So I'd say probably, you know, you just gradually got into things, you know, and you had more chores. That was a world. Anybody around, you know, you get home from school, you'd had chores. And I had one shirt and one pant that my mother would take me down to Barrie, pick up a shirt and a pant. And I'd get done chores in the morning. I'd put my shirt and my pant on like that and go to school. And a lot of my friends just had their regular farm clothes on. And the whole place smelled like a barn in there. But if you grew up around something like that, you didn't really smell it. So the new people that were coming in, they go, "What is that smell? What is that smell?" And what do you mean, what smell like that? And then you know, which was nice to see new people coming in too. You know, they just weren't familiar with it.
Yeah. So you liked being in the barn?
Yeah, I loved it.
Chores and-
Yeah, it was kind of I think anybody you're going to talk to that grew up on a farm, they spent, obviously, you know, you didn't spend time inside. Your barn was your place. And in the wintertime, it was always really warm in there because of the heat given off by the cows, you know. So you go in there, it's comfortable.
And did you have friends? I mean, were there other, you know, people on the hill?
Well, some of my friends have passed, but like there was a Lloyd Robertson up on the hill. He worked in the granite sheds and he got something, I can't remember exactly what it was, but he passed. And you were always on the farm. You didn't go places, you had chores to do, you know, but you knew your neighbors to us.
So you didn't come home from school and go out and play?
No, people didn't. Yeah, when you got older, you might have a car out, an old car you fixed up out in the field, you might run it around or something like this, or a motorcycle, but, you know, then you had something else to do.
Or snowmobiles.
Yeah.
Him and my grandfather.
Yeah.
That's one thing, kind of luxury they had was, what kind of snowmobiles were they?
Well, in 1969, my father bought it was called a Nordic, and he put a dog sled on the back. And anytime we had any extra time at night, we'd fire that up, and I'd be on the back of the dog sled, and Dad'd be driving this Nordic, and Marcel Dutil up the road, he had a Panther, an Articat. And if you go down Eaton Cemetery, down there where the motel is, right at the bottom, that guy was a dealer of these old Articats. They were red and white. Marcel's was black, I remember that, but it was just and that was all of a sudden, you know, you're traveling around more.
So different for you growing up?
Quite a bit, yeah.
Like
Yeah, I didn't
lots of
have-
differences?
I didn't have the chores. My grandfather, when Dad went off to Norwich to college in 75 probably. And my grandfather he must have been close to 60 by then. Because he was in his 40s when Dad was born. So at that time he was kind of ready to retire, and of course losing Dad, it didn't make sense to keep going, so that's when all the critters left. So by the time I came around in 85, it was all, you know, my grandfather had rabbits and little, you know, but he was big into his garden. I think he still might have bees then.
Yeah.
Quite a few beehives.
Yeah, when I was a kid, there was 14 beehives. You know, and it was incredible. He really enjoyed doing that.
I was gonna say, whose job was it? He liked doing it.
Yeah, he liked it.
We just got 2 more. We tried to keep some around for his memory.
Yeah.
But yeah, my upbringing was a lot different than Dad's. I mean, it was
So Barry was a
Pretty
big city. by
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
right.
It was just the times that we grew up in, you know.
But you know, when I came up here, it was more, I get to go out and hunt or do whatever I wanted. And Dad, we had an old 4-wheeler, and I had a dirt bike, so yeah, it was fun for me. I mean, there was, my grandparents probably spoiled me, you know. But Dad had it a lot easier than Dad did, for sure.
How did she spoil you?
Oh, my grandmother took interest in, I like to draw and stuff, and she was very big into the arts. So she took a shining to that, so. And my grandfather was a man of pretty few words, but he did enjoy when we'd come up and he would get out little fun things for us to play with, or he'd take me out in the garden, or, you know, he'd have the old tractor, which we still have, that they bought in '61, his old John Deere 2010, and I remember that's one of my first memories is the sound of the flap on the muffler, ting, 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 and they would be out here, we'd be doing firewood, and I'd be helping, you know, as this little guy.
What did he let you do?
Just tossing wood around and playing around while I probably got in the way more than I helped, but.
We'd always milk like 20 to 35 registered Holsteins. And they'd come every other day to pick up the milk out of the bulk tank. And the bulk tank don't hold 300 gallons. So every other day we were shipping 300 gallons because we always fill it up. And then we had a separator for cream and stuff off to the side and everything.
And did you have trucks come and pick it up, or did you
Yeah.
have to take it?
No, truck would come get it. And then there were still some people that were using the milk cans, you know, but that was starting to go away, you know.
So by the time you were around, there was electricity, plumbing, the whole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
My grandfather did a lot of updates. So in those couple years before Dad and his mother and his 2 sisters moved up here, my grandfather would come up and do repairs. Actually, Marcel would help. He was a teenager then, and he would help my grandfather.
Yeah.
So that we always pick his brain about,
Yeah.
hey, what's this? Do you remember what was here, Marcel? You can see where there was like a.
Marcel knows a lot more about, you know, 'cause-
You weren't around too as a teenager?
no, I was around, but I mean,
He was
Yeah.
just a baby.
Yeah,
at
but
the time,
Marcel
yeah.
was, you know, he's like 10 years older than me, I think, or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was pretty crude here when I think my grandfather bought it. He did a lot of like modern upgrades, which now are, you know, not so modern, but
300 gallon
advertising.
milk bulk tank, you know, it's like,
That's a big deal.
back then it was, now it'd be nothing, you know.
And you said it's the first frame house in town?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, built in.
The house was
1800?
1800, and then it says remodeled 1840. Oh, I always said 1860, but I guess it was a little earlier. So the main part of the house, where the front porch is, it's just one big room, which is now our kitchen, which has been remodeled, and then one large room above. And I'd imagine that was the original dwelling for obviously almost 50 years, and then they built the big part on it. I'm not sure the carriage house is still there, so I'm not really sure when that was built, but I imagine that was probably pre the renovation or the addition.
Mm-hmm.
And Dad and I just had a fella come up last winter, and it needed some attention. Bill Messier grew up as a house mover and stuff, a clever guy, and he put a bunch of cribbing and supports and stuff, so we're pretty thankful that that was looking pretty sad, so.
Yes.
The last class in here was 1946, and the Crotos lived over in the old Victorian house, and they were a big family, and they'd come here. They were the majority of people, and when they died, one of the Crotos married a Wheeler, and in her obituary said that she had graduated from school in last one was 1946. She was 91 years old anyway. She graduated from here.
And this went first to
Eighth grade. Yeah, but it'd be, first through eighth.
I imagine some of those people just went to 8th grade.
Yeah.
So now you're not hearing so much of that anymore, And I'll never forget, a guy from Florida came up here with a convertible, and I was coming down through here, and I got a key to the schoolhouse, and I saw him. I said, "Boy, he looks like an interesting human being." And so I said, "I'm going to stop and talk to him," because he wondered if he knew something about it. And so I stopped, and we were talking. He said, "Yeah," he said, "I went to school here." And he says, "I was looking for a little book he had." And so I went and I got the key, and I opened it up for him and brought him in here like this, but we couldn't find his book. But he turned out to be a big wig with NASA. And he was like, God, he had to be like, I think 93 or something. He was driving a Mustang convertible from Florida. I was like, I said, more power to you, buddy.
This book, I think, sparked his interest in something to do with engineering or aeronautics or something like that. Yeah,
there's something else.
Pretty interesting.
That was the book he was looking for.
Yeah, all those years.
Interested.
Yeah, that's, he reached the pinnacle and probably was like, I wanted to go back to his roots, kind of neat.
So you didn't attend a one-room schoolhouse? So.
No, I started in Marshfield, and of course I didn't have kindergarten. So I went from 1st to 8th grade at Marshfield School, where the town office is now. And then I was the first freshman at the new Twinfield building. And
first graduating class.
First graduating class, yeah.
So you graduated in
1974.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was tell me about school? Did you like it? Did you go and just be glad to get out and come home?
When you came home, you had chores to do and everything like this. It was kind of, you'd see other people and stuff, but it was kind of more, I think that's where you saw a lot of the change in the school system. And a lot of times it's what people ate. Like you might go to school with a piece of meat, and a potato, and that wasn't uncommon. And I think people our age saw all of a sudden there's the Drake's pie and the meat sandwich and everything like this. Not that we didn't eat well, but you go, boy, I'd love to have a Drake's, pie or whatever you call it. It came all packaged up and everything.
So in a way, that was where you socialized and saw things. And
then they'd have school dances and stuff. And
did you consider it a break from chores to go to school?
To go to school?
Or did you just were you glad to get it over with and come home?
Sometimes you were glad to get it over with, all about it. There was some good to it too, no doubt. You meet new people, and it was nice.
I just did a job for a lady that went to school with him, and her memory of Dad was she thought he was pretty cool because he rode his motorcycle to school, and that was a big deal.
At what age?
High school or something.
Yeah, probably 16 or something.
Yeah. Because I drove one too when I was younger because I had to drive alone with the permit. So it was no adults on the back.
Sure.
Yeah. What to get there.
So was that your mode of transportation for a while?
Yeah, kind of, and I remember I bought a 1961 Volkswagen Beetle from Brian Lamberton. And he worked for, was working for a Volkswagen dealership on the Barry Montpelier Road. And had a great big top that opened up like this. And, you know, I wish I had it today because I'd restore it, you know, completely, but it was neat.
So is that something you like to do, restore?
Not really, no. I would have,
You would have.
I changed a few motors and stuff, but
They did it out of necessity then,
yeah.
because
Yeah, where you're gonna take it, you're
Yeah.
gonna do it yourself, you know, or it's not gonna get done, you know.
we hired it mostly out for the business.
Yeah. Now, you know.
Busting knuckles when you get home from work. So we've done it many times.
So you went to school in Barry.
Correct.
Very
Yeah.
different. Did you ever share experiences of what was school like for you?
School, yeah, I mean, I enjoyed school. I had lots of friends, and I enjoyed the social part of it. But I think Dad and I share the same thing with, you know, being young boys and like him and I, you know, like sitting still and stuff. Like it's, you know,
Yeah,
we were
sitting
that
in a
group
room.
of kids, you know.
Yeah.
we like academically, you know, we could perform if we needed to. It was just getting us to perform. So
Getting you to pay attention, sit still and pay attention.
that's right. Yeah, we were in that category, I would say.
But you said you went to college, Norwich?
Yeah,
What did you study there?
I took a Spanish class, you know, just all the regular classes, and then I finally, you know, I got married that following summer, and I decided not to go back.
So you did like freshman year?
Pardon me?
You did freshman year?
Yeah, I did the Rook freshman year.
Okay.
It was more like physical back then because
Yeah.
of military school.
Yeah.
So they whipped them into shape more than taught them how to.
You know, and school was never a big thing, you know, but, you know, my mother kind of talked me into it, you know, and said, hey, you know.
His mother's family has a pretty heavy military background.
Yeah.
His grandfather was served in World War I and was a officer, and then his uncle Eddie was in the 101st Screaming Eagles, my grandmother's, which is the band of brothers, you know, the famous group, and quite a story with Uncle Eddie.
Yeah.
And so they were always very kind of military minded and stuff. So that's probably why she encouraged him to.
Oh, and plus your father was,
And my
Yeah.
grandfather
Pearl Harbor?
served
Yeah.
in Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
so you went to school and wore a uniform?
Yeah. No,
My grandfather, there was 4 brothers. He's the oldest, and they all served in World War II. And he was Army, and then there was Navy, Air Force. Well, before Air Force, but whatever they called it, and then Marine.
Marine.
They all 4 served in.
So were you in the service?
No.
Either of you? No.
No.
We graduated in an era where the people ahead of us were kind of like heading off to Vietnam. You never knew. Same thing as you guys, you know. And so you'd know somebody that had gone over or something, and you know, and then you had to go down and get a physical for the draft. We got that down in New Hampshire. And so just sitting around waiting, you know, see what's going to happen. You're going to get drafted or not. And then finally, I think in, what was it, 75 or something, 6, they didn't have you do that anymore.
So you weren't part
Everybody was
part of
coming.
the being drafted era,
Yeah, and everybody was coming home, kind of, you know.
probably with stories that made you not want to go.
And most of the guys that were over there didn't have the stories. It was, you'd hear the other one. They didn't like talking about it, you know.
The reason some of our friends decided, we had a close friend when I graduated right when we were, you know, heading to Iraq, and a close friend in our group of friends went off, and he was in the 82nd as a gunner, and some of our friends decided to go to the recruiter and that we were gonna go, and he came back and said, absolutely not. So, and he's, yeah.
Well, my ex-brother-in-law is a really good friend of mine, you know, we're like brothers. And he had 27 years in the guards, and he got done. And he'd work for me nights and weekends sometimes when we were logging. And he says, I can't work, you know, this weekend because I got guards. And he'd go shovel off somebody's roof or something. The lady might make him some cookies or something. And he always liked doing that. And then they'd have their guard drill and everything. And he got done, and after 27 years, and then his son wanted to join. So they kept bugging him to re-enlist. And he said, no, no, no. And finally he said, okay, I'll do it for a year. And they said, you know, come on in like this. And he signed up, and he was the first one over to Iraq. He lost Jamie Gray, I don't know, he was a local guy. Jamie had cut his hair. That was the last hair that Jamie ever cut, because Jamie would cut hair. And my father and Jamie's grandfather were really good friends, Max Gray Sr.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to walk from here, you know, across lots, because once in a while my father and Max Sr. would be watching a boxing match. And so I'd walk all the way up there, cut cross lots. If I took the road, I'd be there forever. But
Where was the boxing match?
oh, on television.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see,
the old
okay.
days, yeah. And you know, I just
So, yeah, we were all fortunate in that way that we didn't have to. So
Yeah, he lost-
thank God for people who did serve.
he lost 6 in his unit, you know, and they were National Guard, and there were people that were older, because it wasn't like the draft where you're getting somebody 18 years, 20 years old. Some of these guys are, you know, in their mid-40s.
Because it was the guards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my brother-in-law was like 44, wasn't he, when he went over? Or,
The early 40s, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's really different for the guard to be put in active duty like that.
yeah, boy, more people walking by. I remember you'd never see anybody now. You know, it's a steady. It's like a walking path, all back roads. I remember when you could go on a back road and you would not see a car, you know, and you would hear, there was a little green grass in this road going down this way, and then you could always tell whose car was going by the sound of it. It's kind of weird. Now it's just one right after another, and when you go to pull out, you go, yeah, there's going to be a car coming. You know, it's
It feels like a main thoroughfare.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So you have a family business. Talk
Yeah.
to me about how you, how did you get into that kind of work? And
well, I pretty much always worked for myself, but when I was younger, I drove for a company called Interstate Uniform, and they went to UniFirst. And I was all over the place, you know, delivering uniforms and rugs and picking them up and everything. And I was making good money doing it. So it was a good job, good benefits and everything. And there was a guy by the name of Jay Southgate down in...
the steeplechase? The steeple guy?
No,
Oh.
no. Not Jay...
And his name was Jay, not Southgate.
Not these, Jay,
And he was involved with,
septic pumping anyway. So I deliver it there like this, and I didn't want to work for this big company anymore, because I was putting in tremendous hours and everything. You know, I was making good money and I appreciated it and everything, but I wanted to do something on my own. And so I would look around and I could see all these businesses, you know, and sometimes their sons would take over and they do a good job, and sometimes they take over and they go out of business or something. But I said, nah, I want to work for myself and log in winter. And finally, you know, I kept talking back and forth with Jay there, and you know, he was telling me about it. And so I said, I'm going to experiment with it. And I got myself a little truck, and I do it nights and weekends when I was still working.
but not for him, on your own.
On my own. And then that's been,
In 85 he started, because there's a picture.
85.
I was, what, 6 months old, sitting on his lap in his truck
Yeah.
coming in his first truck.
So you went to work with them?
Yeah,
Jeez, yeah.
we're on the third generation of people too, so I've seen a lot, you know. And sometimes I'll go someplace and I'll say, how's your how's your mom or dad doing? And, you know, sometimes you get some good news and sometimes you get some bad news. He goes, well, he moved to Florida, he's dead or something, you know.
I was gonna say, you've seen a lot of properties and people
Oh,
around
wicked.
here, right?
Seen a lot of change. I've seen a lot of new buildings going up, you know, and places being broken up, you know, and you know, a lot of me would like to, I like some of the modern things, but a lot of me would like to stay how it was when I grew up, you know. If we had the medical stuff and everything, you know, back then we didn't have so much intense medical care.
Oh, I see, like the modern services of healthcare. But what did you like about the way it used to be?
It was just old fashioned, you know.
Similar?
Yeah, well, when you're young, you don't look at it like that so much, but when you get older, you look back on it. And Dr. Corson, down there in Plainfield, if you had to get stitches, you go down there, and it's usually the only time you went to the doctors. He'd stitch you up like this, and you'd have a cigar in his mouth like this. And he was right across from the health center down there, the new one.
Uh-huh.
And he'd be like this, and the smoke is going in your face. You'd be back like this, trying to get away from him while he's stitching you up.
What did you get stitched up? What did you get stitched up?
When?
Yeah, oh, what happened to you that you...
Oh, all kinds of little things, you know. When you're working on a farm, you know, you cut yourself, and if it wasn't much of a cut, you didn't worry about it. But if it was a major one, you kind of, mom or dad say, oh, I gotta take you down there. And, you know, it was just a normal type thing.
So did Jay teach you the septic work? Did anybody have to
No.
teach you, or is it just something you knew how
He
to
just gave me all the, you know, information on where I could get trucks and stuff, and you know,
He
just
didn't feel like you were competition.
no, he was way down, you know. So that,
Waits River,
yeah, no, it wasn't Waits River, it was
Bradford or something.
yeah,
Down that area.
down by Bradford, yeah. Sorry, Post Mills. That's where it was out of Jay, Post Mills. His son's out of Norwich now. He runs an operation there.
So you've been doing it since Ryan?
Well, I rode with Dad since I was a kid, you know, on and off in the summers, and Dad let me run the backhoe when, geez, I was just barely a teenager maybe. He'd let me loose on that, and I always enjoyed doing equipment. But when I got out of high school, I did carpentry for 5 years or so. I worked for a guy. I enjoyed it, but he was kind of phasing out of it. And Dad said, why don't you come work with me? So I did. I rode with him a little while, and then we bought the excavator, and I did installs for quite a few years for him. And then
So you joined him at what age? Joined your dad?
23, 4, something like that. Full time, you know, I just, you know, always kind of, it was kind of my own thing doing that through the business. You know, Dad had all the equipment, and then I just kind of go, and he'd find the jobs, and I'd go there and conquer them.
And do you like working for yourself too?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Well, it's nice because Dad made it pretty easy for me. I mean, he did all the hard work, so, which is, he built the customer base, he made the reputation, so I had it pretty easy coming into it because I could just piggyback off of that, but still work hard to do kind of same thing, try to keep his values. And Dad always told me that, you know, you do every job as if it was your own, you know, and you'll never have a problem. So we try to stick to that, and people appreciate it. And yeah, now we're in a new set of challenges. My sister, Dad's youngest, Lindsay, does all our office work, and so we're trying to bring everything up modern, and, you know, getting more tools to make it, you know, Dad did everything with minimal, you know.
You get 65 years old, I don't mind pulling and jamming all day long, but it's kind of,
I have not heard that phrase. What does that mean?
Pull and jam, just like if you get like a ball, you know, you're
yeah,
just
so I'm
going.
not giving up till it's done, and that's the way we grew up, you know. you gotta accomplish it.
Maybe that's one of those old Vermont sayings, because I've always heard that when I was a kid too.
Then at night you go, man, wow.
And so, how many kids did you have?
3.
3. So it was Ryan,
Yeah.
Lindsay, and...
And my sister Jessica,
Yeah.
she's the oldest.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you ever remarry?
No, I didn't.
Okay,
No,
so
I
you've
got,
got the 3 kids are all
yeah,
live, and so you grew up in Barry with your siblings and
Yeah.
came here to visit
Yep.
when
Yeah.
you wanted, or...
My sister Jessica was already an adult by the time my folks got divorced, so it was Lindsay and I going back and forth. And actually, Jesse lived at the farmhouse for a little while.
yeah.
Right after my grandparents moved out to California. They moved because the winters were getting harsh, they were getting older. My grandfather suffered with Parkinson's for a lot of years, a real bad case of it. So unfortunately they had to go out there where they could be closer to,
Mrs. Arnold.
yeah.
Yeah. And at that time you were living with them here?
No,
No, when they moved? They
We only
Yeah.
stayed up there for a very short period, and when
I was
Dad
living
getting,
out in Moortown with a girlfriend out there and
and then getting his cabin together,
yeah,
and then
trying to pull everything together kind of.
So when did you come back to Marshfield?
Oh boy.
So you were...
I've been on and off,
Uh-huh.
you know, and still am to a certain extent, but you know, I'm here, probably, I don't
I've
know,
been here full time for probably 10 years, 12
Yeah.
years anyways.
something like that, yeah.
So you named it Barry Septic because you started in Barry?
Yeah, well, I had a house in Lower Graniteville, and,
Which is Barry.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then I wanted to make it Green Mountain Septic Service, and there was already something that said Green Mountain, so the lady said, you can't do that. And we were down in Barry, I remember, and she said, how about, she went through all these names, we were talking for a while like this, and she says, how about Barry Septic Services? I put it down. Like that, you know, I just,
Take that name.
yeah, I had people calling me, you know, even before they even knew I was, you know, establishing my name and everything, you know, to do jobs and. so.
Okay, so then it's been here, you've been working out of Marshfield since...
Oh,
Since Dad moved up here in,
Yeah.
early 2000s.
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, because you still had your old red Ford.
yeah.
Yeah.
So when you started working full-time for Barry Septic, where were you living?
Up here,
Up here?
Yeah, I've been up here since I was right out of high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you got married?
I got married in, 2010.
Your wife?
See how I remember.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Wait till you get older, man, it's
I
like,
was nervous for a second. So my
think-
wife's gonna watch this,
well, I think when you get older, you get so much on your mind, and somebody asks you a question, or you'll be someplace, like, a lot of times my girlfriend and I'd go out and we'd be out for dinner, and somebody'd say, hi Andy, and they want to introduce people, you know, and it's like, so you're eating dinner like this, and you think, God, what's that guy's name, you know, or, you know, and,
He has an excellent long-term
yeah.
memory, though. He'll pull stuff up like, how the heck did you remember
The
that?
face I can always remember, but it's hard on, I don't know how you guys are, but, so, yeah, it's like, then you go, don't worry about it, I know what it is.
So you got married right out of high school to...
Yep.
To whom?
Rita, my wife, Longchamp was her maiden name, so she grew up, actually, we're in Lower Graniteville, and she comes from a big French-Canadian family, and Upper Graniteville, 2 big families, and quarry workers. Her father worked at Rock of Ages now over 40 years. Just great people.
Yeah, great people.
And yeah, so we get together. I think Rita was maybe a senior in high school. I was just out of high school. I'm about 3 years older than her. And she moved up with me shortly after graduation, and we've been together ever since. We got married. Well, we got married in the church at St. Monica's Church in Barrie, and then we had the reception up behind the barn. It was a quarter time.
So they moved right into the farmhouse.
Yeah.
It was a good reception?
Oh yeah, yeah, we had some fun. We had did pig roast at a big gigantic tent.
Good time.
Yeah, DJ and all that stuff, a lot of people. It was fun.
So how many kids do you have?
I have 2 daughters.
How old?
Amelia is 10, oh, she'll be 10 on the 28th of this month, and Nora is 7. Yeah.
And you had a birthday party in this?
Correct, yeah. Amelia's last birthday party was in the schoolhouse.
Yeah.
And it was a little house on the prairie theme. For some reason, she got into it, and I said, you know what, with the schoolhouse,
That'll work out
perfect. So the girls all dressed up in their bonnets and their dresses, and we did like sack races, and like, you know, my wife is excellent at themes for birthdays. She goes over the top, so that's what we wound up. Yeah, we had a good time. It was fun.
So what's it like for you to raise a family here compared to you raising a family?
Oh, well, we're kind of, so the funny part is that we're like trying to go back to the way Dad lived, which is ironic, because as you can hear the annoying rooster, so chickens and bees, and we have chickens, bees, and a dog, so we're pretty far behind, but we're working our way up. So
And when I was a kid, you know, we had cows and
Was the barn still functional?
yeah.
Or is it
I mean, it could be. It's got the stanchions are still in there and stuff, so it's set up for milking, which is.
I got a guy that's doing some work on it. I saw Bill the other day. You know, I just want to keep it. I never want to see it fall down. You know, and it's still rugged. You know, like I said, it's the oldest building in town. You know, it's just.
The goal is to get some beef cows up here, just
Yeah.
enough for, you know, to feed the family and extended family. We have these two little fields that surround us here, so, and those aren't hay or anything, they're just grown up, so take those down, utilize those. Our friend up behind us in the woods here, Jordan's a good friend of ours. We got some pigs up there, so he lets us raise a pig up there. And
at his place, not?
yeah, we have a little trail, 4-wheeler trail that goes right over to it.
Back to here.
So we're pretty fortunate. We got good friends as neighbors, so yeah, we help each other out and stuff.
Yeah, and so extended family means your wife's family? Cause
Yeah,
there's none of your cousins or...
Right, yeah, it's mostly so my wife's family's pretty large. One of her sisters has 9 children, so
Yeah.
we had
It's a long.
And
3 of the boys up yesterday, and they're coming up today to, they're gonna hopefully, the older boys are gonna start riding with us, and the hope is that maybe they would like to
We can
help in
hire
the
them all.
business someday, but they're great kids.
How old?
It goes from 18 to about a year old, a little over a year.
Yeah.
So when you say riding with you, like that come in the truck and...
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the goal is Gabe, the oldest boy, I believe is 15.
He rode with me the other day. He's 15. He's a good worker and stuff. So it's.
And the next one down, Caleb, is 13, and they both love to come out, and you know, they just like being out here. They live in Berry City, and you know, so they have like no room, so they just love coming out here.
That sounds like an echo of your childhood.
Yeah, really.
Like coming out here.
Yeah, I know. I let them get on the 4-wheelers, and you know, they're just in paradise up here. It does make you reflect on kind of stuff we take for granted being up here, you know, because it's pretty easy to go down negative path of, oh, I gotta fix this and I gotta do that, but like really when you comparatively to somebody that lives on a postage stamp somewhere,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, we have all this freedom. Unfortunately, Dad and I get to enjoy it less than anybody else because we gotta work to
We're
keep
working.
it. But you
Now
know,
that I'm getting older, I'm kind of contemplating. You know, I want to work a couple more years hard. I'd like to do stuff up here, like get in it, like maybe we shop down the co-op in Montpelier, and what I'd like to do is start growing some vegetables when I get a little bit older like this, and just see if I can't sell to them or something, just,
Oh, like really commercial
Something-
grow.
yeah.
Yeah,
Not that I'll, really need to do it, but it'd be something nice to do on the land too. And right now we got a guy that comes in, I wouldn't do the whole complete land, but,
well, how much acreage do you have here?
208. Yeah,
And how much of that is wood, logging?
logging about 120.
Yeah, I think there's right now there's about 40 some odd tillable acres that are open, and of course some of these fields have grown up, so we could probably kick that up, like Dad said, to close to 60 acres.
And years ago,
Clear stuff out.
we planted Christmas trees.
Mhm.
So-
Yeah, we want to do that again as well.
So when you say a guy comes up, you mean like to keep it open?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Seth Gardner cuts silage off the field,
Yeah.
so they just come up and chop it and send it out with the dump trucks.
Equipment's a lot bigger than it used to be, and when we used to do it, but now they got humongous equipment, 10-wheelers that go down and,
They used a 7-foot sickle bar mower
yeah,
to mow all this.
A 7-foot sickle bar mower?
Yeah.
Yeah,
we chop like that.
just goes on there like little scissors.
Yeah.
Just chop, chop, chop.
Come out neat as a pin, but you didn't have to go from one farm to another, like the new farming now is like I said, we shipped 300 gallons every other day. Yeah, it's,
And how's that compared? What do farms ship
Oh,
now?
geez, gotta be thousands of
thousands.
gallons.
They bring a big tanker trucks in.
They do it by
It's
the
amazing.
pound, by the weight, but you're talking,
It's a different ballgame.
some farms are milking, 500-600 cows at a time.
Yeah.
Have a bunch of, maybe that much more, again, heifers, and yeah, it's pretty intense.
Yeah,
It's a business,
yeah.
big business.
So why are you working so hard? Is it just too hard to control how many customers you take in?
Well, yeah,
Just hard to say no?
You try
Well,
to
we're
get-
growing, and so what we gotta do is, we're getting a new truck, and we gotta find somebody, I'm gonna continue on for a couple more years, but we've gotta educate somebody that can do a good job, because once you jump out of that truck, you wanna make sure that guy's gonna represent you,
Mhm.
100%.
So where did you get your values from? I mean, that's really
I think from my father,
just like,
when you grow up young like we did, there was no hugs or kisses. You had to be in a barn at a certain time. You had certain chores to do. Not that my parents didn't love me, but you were just taught. And if you go back further than that, my father living through the Depression and stuff, and going through quite a little bit in his life, and going in the service and everything, you kind of,
yeah, so it was a little, not the fuzzy warm, but
Yeah.
but they loved you.
yeah.
But this value to do a job like it was your own, I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think
But-
that came from my grandpa. My grandfather was the type of, and I guess probably a lot of his generation. I mean, if he told you he was going to do something and shook your hand, it was better than a contract. It was
Yeah.
his word, and that was just the way those people were. Like, if your word was lost, then you had that was your credit, and it's, if your credit was no good, then you couldn't survive.
And if some farmer around was hurting and he was in the hospital, because I remember there was a Randall over there, as you go down Eaton Cemetery, you take that long driveway, where the woman works in a woolen mill.
Jake Martin Road.
Not woolen mill, but the,
Jake Martin Road,
Yeah,
where
Jake
where Kate Smith.
yeah,
Yeah,
there was a Randall farm up there. And you'd go up there and you'd help him do chores, because he's in the hospital. I'd clean up everything. You wouldn't wait around for a thank you, nothing like this. And here you extended your day, but you were more glad to do it. You didn't express anything. The guy's got to do it. He's got to get it done.
you relied on your neighbors and
Yeah,
stuff.
the neighbors are incredible.
And is that changing?
Yeah, I'd say, well, it's
And still, we've still got very good neighbors. Very, very lucky.
But the thing is everybody could be more self-sufficient given, today's
Yeah.
world. I mean, you can go down, we just, but then, something happens, a natural disaster like Irene or something, and yeah, I mean, you could very well, we had a storm one time with trees down everywhere and people got stuck in between the trees and grab a chainsaw and go up the road, and then we could hear, Pat Martin and those guys coming down the other side. And there was like, one lady was pregnant and freaked out, like you never know. I mean, we get comfortable with not relying on our neighbors, but really we're I think a little more fragile than we think. So someday,
Well, I've been someone you saved, because, just going over the edge of the road here at the T in the winter.
Oh, good.
Yeah, you see that a lot.
So I didn't remember it because it's a lot of people, but I do a lot. I keep a chain in the back of my truck at all times, and I've yanked a lot of neighbors out. But I enjoy doing it because A, it helps people, and B, it's just good karma or whatever you would call it. So someday I might be in the ditch, and somebody might need to pull me out or give me a ride somewhere. So
Did I tell you about the little boy that got run over that was leaving here? Yeah, I forgot, 'cause I got so much on my mind, but the old Kodo place I was telling you over there, they'd walk over here to go to school, and one day on the way home, there was Bassett's taxi. And when I was a kid, you didn't see any taxis around, but Ken Bassett had one. And it was a station wagon. And it had a little sign on it like this. Man, it was unusual.
Hey, did he have a taxi service, or did
Yeah,
he just
he had a
drive a
taxi.
taxi?
Yeah, he had a taxi service. And he was coming down one day, and they had just left school. And they got up just past the farmhouse up there, and he hit the kid with a car.
speaking of the T,
Killed him. Yeah, and I never.
That was one of the Croto kids.
That's one of the Crotos, and the Crotos are a really good family, man. They had they're a humongous family.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's a sad thing. But there were a lot of accidents, weren't there?
Well,
Farm
if you go in
accidents?
that, you go in that cemetery, there's a lot of
My
little
dad-
ones in there.
Yeah, my dad, when he was testing mill at the old Orton barn, the big yellow one down there? Well, he was on his way to that one, and diagonally across the road, there was a barn there too. And there was two brothers, and they were doing, taking out the manure. And one of them got stuck, when he was backed up there, and they put the chain on the back of the rim, and they put it under the front end rather than over the front end, and he pulled on it and flopped it over like this right into this big pile of manure. My father tried to save his life, but couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And you just saw stuff like that, and like I said, the guy that worked for us lost his arm down the old. There was no. Some of our government's gone super crazy, but as far as like health concerns and I'm glad they
Safety.
watch over that safety. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So it sounds like this area is suited to who you are, would you say?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I guess
it's a
so.
relaxing place to be. Yeah.
I guess every place you come up kind of builds who you are as a person,
So, and if I just ask you again, just to come at it differently, what do you like most about living here in Marshfield?
I'm a forest person. I always love the forest, and that's why when we fire up the skidder at wintertime, of course, spring, summer, and fall you're really busy, and in wintertime things slow down. You go out on emergencies, and now we're busy, so we're busy even in the winter some, and it was nice to have the winters off a little bit and break down from there.
You like the land.
Yeah, I love the land. I love going down there and, you get a little bit of wood out, and you don't do it to try to load a log truck anymore. You do it because you'll be down there, you might pull out 2 or 3 logs for firewood, and I always take the ones that aren't really beautiful. you know, and,
It's like picking weeds in your garden.
Yeah.
Dad does a real careful job with what he takes, and
yeah,
well, if I take this one, then this straighter tree is gonna get more light, you know. So
yeah, so it works out good, but I just enjoy doing it, you know.
And what about you, Ryan?
it's the same for me. I think being in the woods. Dad and I've obviously picked that up from Dad, but I mean, we know every rock on this 208 acres, you know. I mean, I could close my eyes and just know by the lay of the land walking where I am. And so, yeah, I guess that's the biggest thing. And even neighbors, I mean, like Jordan's and, you know, stuff, like we can come in the middle of down on Merrill's land where we hunt with one of our friends, folks owns that piece, and, you know, hey, I'll meet you here, you know. It's like, it's just, we don't think about it, but when you ask that question, it's just being, like, it's part of us. It's hard to explain, but we know every inch of it, you know. It's like why I think going back to your question about why we work so hard, it takes a lot of money and taxes and everything else to hang on to something like this.
Taxes are outrageous.
But these
He sends his kids to St. Monica's, and out of my 15 grand a year in taxes, 11,000 goes to the school system. I think they should turn around and say, hey, he's decided to send him to another place. You know, I want everybody to get a really good education. I want them to feel comfortable about their education and everything too. You know,
But yeah, that's the thing, is like those little moments that we do have when we're out hunting or just going for a walk or something, and like trying to reflect on how special it really is to have something like this. And just the thought, I think Dad will agree with this, just the thought of having to give up even a small piece of it. It's more than just value, like monetary, like money comes and goes. It's part of us, you know. The sentimental value is really high, and that's what drives a lot of us. Like the fear of, you know, someday, well, you know, everything's getting too expensive. We gotta.
So you've
you know,
thought
make a
about
change.
maybe dividing it up? I mean,
'Cause
you've entertained the idea, it
He's-
sounds
I
a
mean,
little bit.
eventually, as I pass on this earth, I mean, my 3 kids are gonna wind up.
He's seen so much farms getting broken up. I've seen it in my lifetime,
Yeah.
where just families they run out of resources, or for whatever reason it causes infighting,
And a lot of people,
we're looking to avoid that at all costs.
Yeah.
It's very motivating.
and a lot of people back then, you know, that they couldn't keep up with the money, and you know, so you know, it's so expensive to hold on to the old family farm, and they were brokenhearted when they had to leave it. I know so many people that went through that. I mean,
You thinking
seriously.
of Marcel?
Huh?
You thinking of Marcel?
Is this being recorded?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
But,
you can,
yeah.
you want to know?
no, but Marcel's older brother, he didn't want to, you know, he wanted to go out on his own, fine and dandy. And then Tony, Marcel's father, was going to sell it. And I always kind of wish that Marcel had wound up with it, because Marcel he was a really hard worker, he's a great guy. And, you know, I always thought he'd be great as a neighbor, you know. But he's getting older now too, one of his kids. In life, you always have to make a decision, you know, because we don't live forever. And I'm at 65, I don't feel bad, but you know, you start to feel your age, you know, and it's, especially when you're carrying caskets, you know, all of a sudden somebody said, hey, would you mind carrying a casket? I go, oh man, that person's gone now, and you start thinking about things. And things in life, when you're younger, you know, you always want to try to get ahead, get this, get that. And you look at an older person, you go 10 years down the line. Well, 10 years down the line, you know, I'm hoping I'm still getting around in good shape, but you know, I don't want to, you know.
I think a big part of that motivation of us working all the time, like you said too, is Dad and I don't, you know, we get to enjoy the land and stuff too, but like, it's bigger than us. I think Dad would agree with that. It's more of a legacy to leave behind, Because if he never started the business, honestly, or he came back to farm with my grandfather, there's no way we would have hung on to this. No way.
And my
Maybe
father
maybe
was-
a piece of it.
Yeah, my father said, don't farm, you know, because it was a buyout in 1975, I think, when I think it was either the state or the federal government offered people so much money to quit farming. And that, to me, that doesn't make sense. They pay them, you know, a chunk of money, and because I think there was a surplus of milk,
And so you're saying if he had kept farming, they wouldn't have been able to keep it up?
No, we would. If that became the family business, there's no way. Not unless we really like just from the get-go started tearing the barn down, building modern. I mean, it would have had to been a complete.
it'd be such a costly thing that wouldn't be worth, you know.
He would have had to started that process with my grandfather.
If somebody's gonna farm here now, it's you know, man, you gotta build a bigger barn, you know.
There'd be
So
quite a hill to
You've got
climb.
a nice combination then of being able to use the land and log it and have your business pay for
Yeah,
it
so-
and the taxes.
Yeah,
And you decided to send your kids to St. Monica,
Yeah,
even with the extra cost?
yeah.
And
The values are very important to us. My wife comes from a Catholic family. We grew up spiritual, but never went to church or anything. And you know, when my wife was really sick at one point, and Dad went through some pretty serious brain surgery and serious heart surgery and stuff. So it's cemented my faith. So it's very important for our family to go there, and we just like the values there, the families, and now it's like a community of people. So yeah,
And it's likely your kids are gonna stick around here?
I hope so.
And you're
I mean,
gonna
they-
take over the
well,
business? and-
his wife's got such a humongous family, and they do too, so it's like, it's nice to see everybody up there playing, and, you know.
It's come back
farms.
alive.
Yeah. big
And
time.
my aunts come and visit, and that's one of their. My aunt Lucy doesn't come up very often, but when she did, she was like, you know, this is great, like, you know, because it was just dying on the vine, you know, and now there's life breathed back into it.
When I see it on the outside, I see trampolines and pools and
That's
He's
we're
slowly
trying to-
fixing the place up too, we're gonna paint.
Yeah, we've
It's
done a
just-
lot of inside, a lot of lead paint removal.
We've done a lot to it, you know, which is good, and we're gonna continue on, you know.
My wife's painted pretty much every room, done trim work, you know.
My parents would be
Plumbing.
very happy with that, you know.
yeah, I bet. And you're gonna take over the business?
Yeah, that's
You're prepared to do that?
the intention.
Yeah.
And according to my daughters, who again are 7 and 10, that they're gonna come work for me. So we'll see. But then also Amelia is gonna be the farmer, and Nora, my youngest, is gonna be the chef. So she's gonna create the product, and Nora's gonna turn it into the finished product.
Have you ever met them?
No.
Oh man, I got some great grandkids and
Yeah, so
children.
It sounds like you have a great family and that you hang
Yeah.
out together when you're not working?
yes, yeah, Dad and I are always been close. We're always around. I mean, we'd be pretty lost if we lived apart, I think. We rely on each other a lot.
So how did you navigate COVID?
You know what? We just got busy with work, and it never
Just
really.
Didn't think about it, you know, really.
No, I mean.
I did get my
So
shot.
you were a little bubble
Yeah,
together as a family?
yeah. It just kind of changed. Like obviously, like we're outside, so sometimes we don't really even need to interact with people. But some people want to, so then you throw a mask on, if, you know, or whatever. But then, I mean, honestly, it didn't really. Besides going into places and having to wear a mask, and you know, being a little more cautious when we're, you know, writing receipts to people and like little small things. But like,
Yeah.
we just were so busy, we didn't really.
And you got vaccinated right away?
Yeah,
Were you considered a first line worker or anything like that? Or was
No.
it just the age thing?
I had to go through the age thing.
Well, he had it with his heart.
My operation
Oh,
too.
right.
I got a cow valve in here now.
Cow valve?
Isn't that ironic? He's part cow now.
They said, you want a cow or a mechanical, Mr. Tibbitts? And I said, I want a cow valve. Because I don't want to, so many of my customers, I'm on the third generation of doing this. We are, you know, and
Of doing what?
pumping tanks. So
Oh.
you go to a lot of different places and talk to people and they say, oh yeah, Andy, I had that done like this and it'd be a mechanical one. I said, no, I'm not going down that road. And the cows, when they couldn't produce enough milk or, you know, they were having trouble or broke a hip or something like this, we'd send them off, you know, and I said, man, I hope the cow's gonna be good for me now. I'll take a cow valve.
Wow. So you were down for the count for a while.
Yeah, and then they pulled an artery out of here while we were in there.
Yeah.
Replaced 2 pulmonary arteries.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the brain surgery?
Yeah.
He had a lesion
7
on
years
his
before that.
temporal lobe.
Wow.
Yeah, he was quite a. It was born because grandmother was how old when you were born? She was in her 40s.
Yeah.
Or 41. So when he was born, the bicuspid valve was in utero. His cortical dysplasia, which caused his lesion on his temporal lobe, was in utero. So
they knew this was gonna.
they were wondering, why didn't you ever have these symptoms?
Yeah.
Why he never had epilepsy. So they were really interested down in Dartmouth in his case. Unfortunately, when he was down there, he caught a bad infection in his spinal fluid. So it made it a really...
Oh, yeah.
You hear about that in the hospital, so all of a sudden somebody's in there and they get a infection.
He had
Yeah.
a long
Was it like
recovery.
MERS or
Was it what?
what kind of infection?
It wasn't MERS though, it was, I'm not really sure, it's just, it was
Yeah.
just such, there were so many
Once you get,
medical terms thrown out.
yeah, all you want to do is get out of the
I knew
hospital. You
everything.
appreciate everything they do. But you said, man, I just want to get out, you know.
Were you in for a while?
First time I think it was like 8 days, wasn't it?
Yeah, he came home and then I came down one day and he was having a hard time speaking. And I went down, so we thought he was in a better place, we'd stay with him all day. And then one day I went down and he had broken some hardwood chairs right in half and he looked very frustrated and he was having a hard time speaking. So we had to rush him up and that was from the infection. I got into his spinal fluid and he really, I don't think he
And
remembered.
cured, you know,
Didn't remember.
haven't had any problem at all, you know. I don't even remember that when they brought me home, you know. It was
So
unreal.
yeah, he kind of had 2 problems rolled into one there. But
Wow. And so you were running the business, or you took over
Yeah.
running the business
Yeah.
there for a while and, yeah. Did you have to go to rehab for some care or were you by yourself there recuperating?
Well,
visiting nurses came.
with the rehab, I had to go to Central Vermont there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we took him out
Oh,
there
yeah.
during Montpelier.
Do you need to switch that or is it, can you go a little
We're
bit?
probably coming
And-
to the
And I
end,
don't,
close to
my
the-
watch is all the wrong time, so how, can you?
It's
do
been
it?
an hour and 20 minutes, so.
Okay,
Really?
well, good.
Wow. Flies by.
Now, when you
We're
put this
talking
out
about
there,
ourselves.
you're gonna put the whole thing out or,
Yeah.
really?
Yep, it's gonna go up on this site, the Historical Society has a link to our story project, and then your name will be listed with all the interviews, and people can
Okay.
go watch it.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, at least for now, it's still a work in progress.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
Putting things together, editing them and all that kind of stuff. And,
So it'll be all edited together, yeah.
yeah.
Some titles put on and whatnot.
Mhm.
You'll see, I'll get you a copy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And have you done Steve Newton over there too, or?
No,
No,
No?
no,
Are you gonna do him, or?
no,
no.
it's come to an end, we, you
Yeah.
know, that's why I really wanted to get you guys in.
Yeah, because
You know.
Vern was his grandfather, got the old Croto place over there, and he and my father are good friends too.
Mhm.
And then Vern had his son Bud, Bud's Steve's father. And Bud's gone now too.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, I remember those old
So
days.
this history and,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's something else.
So.
Everything was quiet around here though, you know.
I was gonna ask you that, you know, so I mean, you kind of talked a little bit about the people around here, but, you know, what, like for someone who doesn't live here, how would you describe the people in Marshfield and how is, that changing? If it is?
It's like so you have the old school, like, I guess what you'd call native people that grew up on farms that are like dad and stuff, but then it's a weird town because then you had Goddard College, which was like the epicenter of, kind of the hippie movement and stuff. So you have these two different, very different, types of personalities and, ideas and stuff, but it's funny, it did kind of meld together though, like, so you have, it's an odd combination of people, but it seems to, seems to work. Everybody seems to get along. Of course, you get people with differing politics and everything, especially nowadays. Mindset you're gonna have some.
A lot of the old farms I saw, they were bought out, and so the families moved, A lot of people went into the granite sheds because that was a big thing.
From the farms?
Yeah, that's where Marcel went,
One of the saddest parts.
Good worker,
is Vermont produced some of the most special, like, characters, I guess would be, for lack of a better term. They were like so unique in just the way they spoke, the way they even moved and looked, and the way they dressed. They were uniquely, Vermont, right? So there was only a handful of these guys left, and Dad used to take me when I was a kid, oh, we gotta go out and see Buster or whatever, and they'd all have these, the hats sitting half cocked and the Vermont accent, super deep Vermont accent, and just like, it was unique to Vermont though, like, and the sad part for me is that my kids will only know stories of these people that were kind of built this place that we loved.
So those kind of characters are disappearing.
And that was probably a mixture of, French Canadian people coming down and these different, people that came together, New Englanders and French Canadians, and it just kind of, I guess it'd be like Cajuns down in Louisiana. I mean, they're specifically like, you can tell, like, as soon as they fire up their speech, it's like, oh yeah, there's a Cajun guy, the same up here. It's like, oh, old time Vermonter.
There used to be an airport in East Montpelier, that building that's like that, that was an airport. And I remember when planes used to fly in and out of there.
Which building?
Where RB Technologies is.
Yeah, it's like that was an airport. And my father and his younger brother had a plane, and they were going to land there, and they had to land out in the field because there's something wrong with the plane, and they pulled it all the way back, and they, my father's younger brother said, Arnold, why don't you go across the road, because there's no need of both of us going down if it does go down. Where other people might look at it and go, man, I don't know, I think I'm not going to go back in that plane. But they made it up over the field and into the airport, fueled it up and took off again, and he'd fly over here and they'd look at the area.
So it was just a small...
Oh, just a small plane, yeah. When they got out of the service...
Were there planes parked there? Did there used to be some private planes parked there? Or was it just for landing?
I think it was just primarily for landing.
That was a hangar, so there must have been planes in there.
Yeah, it was something else.
Those guys weren't scared of much. They're pretty...
Yeah.
Guys have seen war and stuff,
Yeah.
They're pretty hardy.
Depression.
Pretty hardy guys, really, and gals. They were. You meet an old Vermont woman, the matriarch of the family, and it was like, yeah, you don't mess with her, They meant business, and they told you straight how it was.
Like I was saying up on the little barn up there where they had some of the dances there. What's the oldest one? 1810, wasn't it? Somebody's name. so-and-so and so-and-so, 1810, you know,
What, they wrote it on the wall?
on the wall, yeah.
With, they carved it, or
No, they wrote it.
with a,
Yeah.
like a pencil?
There's a bunch of them.
It's all it's all open, so they'd have dances
Yeah.
in there.
Did you ever see that, or was that before your time?
Oh, I've seen it. Oh, not the dances.
No, probably right before he moved up here, because there was still some people alive that told me that they used to go up there and
Yeah.
dances, probably in their late 70s or so. So probably right before Dad got up here, they were still doing that. Probably a little bit before Leo bought it. I don't think Leo was up here.
Yeah, this place has got a lot of potential too, you know, so like it's, you know, as the other generations come up, you know, they might decide to do something, you know, like I said, we want to start putting some vegetables in and, you know, and having some, have a place where somebody wants to have a marriage there, you know, and
Yeah, have a reception,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
mow it up a little bit more and, you know, the fields look really good, you know, so
It's
plenty of parking
ideal.
and, yeah.
Well, that's because the place that used to be a vineyard there. had
Yeah.
weddings there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I wondered when the farm sold, if somebody might want to do that with it instead of farming, but.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Nice, well, how do you feel about these guys who are keeping going the whole?
Up here,
Oh,
yeah.
business?
They
Yeah,
seem
they-
like nice folks, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've spoken with Neil and Catherine quite a few times. I went up to the sugar house, and my buddy Jordan worked for Bob and Lee since he was like 13, so he knows that place like, you know, like the back of his hand. So when I first met Neil, he was asking about Jordan, and I said, well, he'd be a really valuable asset for you,
Yeah.
because I mean, he knows how that tractor runs, and he knows
He's a good worker.
So,
Broke his leg too.
so they're really kind of, yeah, they're really kind of amplifying what they were doing there before and bringing it up modern and stuff. But I mean, I guess that's what it's going to take to keep it going, you know? So,
Yeah, and I mean, it could have changed what happened right around here,
Right.
but it's all.
they just planted an apple orchard in there, so.
But they've built up so much on, you know, all over the Hollister Hill, you know, it's like, when we used to hunt, we'd go all the way from here up to Marshfield, to the woods, because we knew every square inch of the trail. And so you'd put your gun down, you'd go up to the store, get something to eat, come back through, pick up your gun, and you'd either get a deer on the way up or on the way back. Yeah, and it's just, now I'm getting older, I don't know, I still like deer hunting, but I also say life and death. you know, things like that.
He does his loop, yeah. He's becoming a little softer.
Oh,
with the killing.
man.
He doesn't really
I
care.
love venison, but I don't know.
If he gets one that, you know, he can't pass up, he'll take, but he's
Yeah.
more happy just to be walking.
Watching
around.
them sometimes, yeah, it's like,
Are you a hunter?
Oh, yeah.
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 No,
we
we
worked
hunt.
in-
So you get venison every year?
Yeah, we try.
I still go out, but you kind of, I think when you get to be a certain age, you start thinking about that, where we always ate everything out of the barn, and you eat a Holstein, you know, and that's not really yummy, you know?
They're tough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We have a group about 6 of us, and then of course my father-in-law hunts and my nephews. So we take them up on youth day and do little fun things like that. They enjoy turkey hunting.
And you're taking your son with you?
I don't have a son.
Oh,
Not yet.
two
Two
daughters.
daughters.
Two daughters,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's
I
okay.
know why I was-
But if they express interest, then they'll be coming too. So yeah, it's just, again, it's an excuse to be out in the woods really more. I've seen more things in my tree stand than I'm sure any nature hiker has ever. Just sitting in place for hours and hours, you just
What do you see? What do you
it's
see?
calming.
fisher cats,
Yeah.
bears walking around on their hind legs, getting
Yeah.
shaking apple trees, you know, ermines coming right up like this to you.
I bow hunted.
owls.
The law, I got a lot of deer with a bow, and there was a rock, stone wall that went through, and I always called it Fisher Cat Valley, because the fisher cats would walk on that wall all the way up through. And one of the biggest fisher cats I ever saw, I've never seen one that big.
That's not something you kill and eat, is it?
No,
No. They're not native. They're brought in to kill porcupines
yeah,
in like the 40s or something.
yeah. they were good for the fur, people like that.
What about bear?
Yeah, we'd see bear.
Do you
Yeah.
kill bear?
No, we never actively hunted.
I had a chance, I was into bow hunting, that was my thing, I loved it.
Yeah, who taught you that?
Huh?
Who taught you that?
My father, believe it or not, years ago, he didn't teach me it, but he was a semi-pro. And,
And archery, just a sport and
Yeah.
stuff.
and we were always too busy on the farm and stuff, so I kind of took it up a little bit later, like in my, probably around 17, 18. And I'd go out, and I remember the first one I got, and, you know, and what I liked about it is because everything wasn't disturbed, like, you know, there was no gunshots or anything like this, it was quiet, you know, and it was the start of the season. And so you'd get out there and you'd figure out where they were going and everything, where to set up your tree stand, and I always liked that a lot.
It's a challenge. Anybody that hunts for real, not these road hunters and all this other garbage, but like, if you really want to challenge yourself and put yourself on a level playing field, you know, of course people say, oh geez, you got a big advantage, right, going in with a bow, you know, you can, but you know, you get into their territory, people underestimate how smart, especially a mature buck is.
And you
Very
always,
smart.
yeah, you always appreciate the kill. I think any really true hunter appreciates the kill. He doesn't just go there and go, oh man, yeah, you got that son of a gun, you know, you
Not
go,
just sport.
yeah, you go, I appreciate it because, you know, it's been
Luckily ethics are coming
Yeah.
back into the sport, into it.
And
Are they?
Yeah,
Why?
there's popular guys like these meat eater guys and stuff and these guys that go out and backpack out in like national, you know, like in public lands, and they really push themselves. They don't make it easy. They make it hard on purpose for themselves, and that sparks something in people that maybe before that just saw like, you know, your local dum-dum down at the store, like, you know, smacking the deer and acting like a fool, drinking beer or whatever, you know, that kind of, you know, unfortunately kind of thing that people see in town sometimes, and there's still those guys out there. But no, like the real, it's struck a chord with the younger people to get back to that, like kind of.
It sounds like Native American values too.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
it's like, and all these old houses have like a summer kitchen and a winter kitchen, you know, it's like, yeah.
Right. We actually, when we met, we rented an apartment that was a summer kitchen.
Yeah,
Really? Yeah.
yeah.
Nowadays, if somebody says you got a summer kitchen, you go, what are you talking about? You know?
Was there one on this
Yeah.
side?
Yes.
Oh, so is the kitchen that's now your kitchen, was that it?
Yeah, there's like a weird wall inside. If you go inside, there's like a little corner that goes down to the basement. But that little corner, I believe, was the summer kitchen because there was pantry cupboards and stuff.
So what is a summer kitchen for the record?
Just, I guess, a
Where
kitchen
you
that
were-
you use in the summer.
Yeah, you know, you're,
Well, it was more porchy,
yeah,
right?
you didn't
Right,
need
it's
the wood
more like a
stove
porch.
going
Where
or
you would, so when it got hot in the summer, you could be more
In fact, our
comfortable enough.
outdoors.
porch out there had like a little cutout, and I believe they must have had some sort of place where they could. There was actually an old clay pipe that went down into the septic.
Uh-huh,
Well, the cesspool originally.
yeah.
So I'm sure they went out there and rinsed their dishes off.
Originally, there was no, you went outside and did your deed.
Well, and cooking too, if you're canning and
Outhouses.
everything.
Yeah,
If you're canning, you know, it gets hot in the kitchen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, so the summer
Convenience.
kitchens had screens, right? More
Yeah,
like a
and you
screen.
had wood stoves
Yeah.
to cook. So if you were inside, you wouldn't want to be inside prepping food while the stove was going, because it'd be 95 degrees, 100 degrees in there, you know. We knew that old Mrs. Brown, Grammy they called her,
yeah.
and they had a fire in their house every day. We'd be the middle of summer, deathly hot, and she'd have fire.
Oh, it'd be
Because-
90 degrees out and the kitchen
In
stove
case
was
she needed
going.
to cook, she just
She was cooking, and she made these donuts like you wouldn't believe.
wired.
Oh, but man, they were good. She'd come out with a whole big thing of donuts in it. You go, okay, I'll eat them.
We'd go over for sugar on snow.
Yeah,
They make pickles.
yeah.
And, yeah.
Hour 35.
Okay. Yeah, so, because I've heard like the Brays got together every Sunday with their big family and did donuts, had donuts.
Yeah.
So it was something people did, they didn't have to go to the Morris Farm to do sugar on snow, you did it yourself.
Yeah,
We do, so we do a version of that with Rita's family every Sunday. I mean, if she misses a Sunday with her family, she's up in arms about it.
yeah.
Spaghetti.
It's great.
Spaghetti Sundays?
Meatballs and noodles, that's what the kids Granny's, and she bakes bread, she'll make 4 loaves of bread. And then, so we kind of have that little tradition on that side still, which is fun.
Is that why one of your daughters wants to be a chef?
Yeah, I don't know why, because both of us are pretty terrible cooks. But
Did you meet
sometimes-
the daughters this month?
I
No.
haven't,
Oh, you didn't.
no.
No.
So it's Amelia?
Amelia and Nora.
Nora.
Yeah.
Man.
All right.
So, okay, to wrap it up, what accomplishment are you most proud of?
Most accomplishment I'm most proud of is having 3 wonderful kids. Really. Yeah.
That's great.
You know,
Well,
I call that a
Yeah,
blessing.
family.
Yeah, family.
For sure. And I'd say for, dads too, is being humble about it, but, he put a lot of work into hanging on to what we had. And it was quite a feat to build up from the ground up and just happen to get into a type of business that allowed us to, I mean, a lot of people would have folded under that kind of pressure, but he just kept persisting, so.
Keep on going.
Yeah, again, going back to I think that's why we value my grandfather so much, because somewhere he got it from someplace, just like that. I think a lot of it's a stubborn Irishness too on his mother's side. They were feisty, tough little people, and I think that's probably part of it as well. So those 2 things together just gave him some
A hardworking gene.
incredible
Yeah,
amount of
keep
drive. Just like, I
You
fell
didn't
down, I
have
gotta
any,
get back up,
No other excuse, at the time when you're brought up like that, it's for the good of the family too. That's, yeah.
Family is
Yeah.
bottom line. That drives everything. Because if I didn't have kids, or he never had kids,
We'd all-
who cares, right? It's
Yeah.
about legacy and leaving something behind.
Yeah, and you have
God
something
willing.
pretty special, because so many people travel or leave
Right.
home,
Yeah.
so the fact that you've got these, the
One,
3rd generation coming up and,
Yeah,
one nice thing about people coming up and saying, geez, this is beautiful, it does make you stop and, because we get wrapped up in the little things. Hey, we gotta do this today.
chores.
We gotta do that
That's the
today.
whole thing, chores.
So somebody will stop and go, geez, this is amazing. And then you gotta stop and think, oh yeah, it is. That's why.
and do
That's why I haven't
you
given
stop on Sundays?
Pardon me?
Do you stop on Sundays?
We try to.
Yeah, I try to,
Just
No,
like,
we should head out, yeah.
oh, we're pretty good. We go to church, Rita and I, and
Yeah.
we try to relax on Sundays. His version of relaxing is cutting firewood with my uncle, so we
Yeah.
call it that. That's his version of relaxing.
Sometimes,
Sharpening a chainsaw.
that's what sharpening a chainsaw.
Do you supply wood from your woodlot to family?
Yeah.
When you
so-
say chopping.
I got a customer that's bringing us some this year because Ryan and I get so busy, but we still got quite a bit that I pulled out this last winter.
Yeah, we do. Maybe
I like doing it, just,
we have to do some to keep the woods clear.
yeah.
Stuff falls down, and so that gets a lot of that, tipped over stuff.
And you were saying with your uncle, so this is your brother?
No,
No.
his ex-brother-in-law.
That's
right.
probably, yeah,
They're like best
we're like
friends.
brothers,
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, my mother's brother.
yeah.
All right, well, what haven't I asked you that is a story you might want to tell or something I wouldn't know to ask you?
I don't know,
We
we've
covered quite a bit.
Yeah.
Trying to think.
seen a lot of change around,
Talk
and
about that for a second.
some change is good and some change isn't, that's the way it.
How do you decide which is which?
I think when a lot of people came here, they were more vocal, where the people that were born and raised here weren't so vocal, but we were still survivors and we still cared about doing the right things in life. you know, and here my father, you know, I went into the legislature, you know, and you know, a lot of people thought a lot of my dad, you know, he cared about things.
The
He
only-
wasn't there for an image or anything like that, he cared about it.
And so you're saying sometimes just being vocal, it isn't necessarily caring about it.
Right. You know, but we grew up in it, you know, and people been all over the world, you know, and it's kind of like when you go into another area, you should learn to kind of adapt to their life. What's his name? We pump out a guy by the name of Ethan Hubbard.
Oh, yeah.
You must know him. He gave me a book and everything like this.
He documented in the 60s and 70s
Yeah.
the old Vermonters.
Yeah, and he
Oh,
traveled all
Oh, yeah.
over the world.
Yeah,
I'll try to find the book. You guys, I let you
Yeah.
borrow it.
yeah,
It's-
there's pictures at the co-op? Oh,
Yes, I think there's some of
Yeah.
Ethan's
Yeah.
photos at the co-op.
yeah, oh, cool, I
And
love
just
that.
that tradition of old
Yeah.
Vermont, you know.
Yeah.
So people are coming and instead of adapting, they're wanting to change.
Well, yeah.
They
I
like
think
to
any
keep
any Vermonter will say that to you. Not that you don't like that person. It's just that I think if you grew up in an area like Chicago or something, you moved here and you go, hey, you know, what are these guys laying back for? You know, or, you know, there wasn't that many people around, and people weren't so, I don't know if you call it articulate over things, but you know, just we got things done. You know, nobody would ever want to go. I don't think any politician should go in and go, "Oh, I'm a politician. That's what I do for a job." No, you should just go down there and try to get things done for the good of humanity, all humanity, like this, and then go about your business. And that's the way the legislature was a little bit more back then. You know, because you got a farmer, Peanut Kennedy was the Speaker of the House when my dad was in there. My dad used to buy Chrysler off him like every 3 or 4 years. He owned a dealership out in Chelsea. When I'm talking a dealership, there's a little building like this, you know. And that's me going back in time like that. So
And
there's-
did your dad go to town meeting?
yeah, oh, yeah.
And
Well,
you guys
He was
go
a
to town
selectman for,
meeting?
I think, 20 or 25 years.
We have in the past, yeah, probably not as much as we should.
Oh, do we go?
Well, and, I'm sorry, so your dad was a selectman, was he also in the legislature?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
all right.
When he
Yeah.
was he was house number 109, and when he was in there, it was grouped together, Cabot, Callis, Marshfield.
No, Cabot, Marshfield, and Plainfield. Now, then they got rid of the 109, House 109. And now it's Cabot, it's Marshfield, Plainfield, and East Callis.
So he was also on the select board?
Yeah.
Okay,
He cared about this country.
yeah. And so do you guys go to town meeting?
We have in the past, not as much as we.
I go there, and to be truthfully honest with you, I don't know too many people there. You know, and to a certain extent, it kind of bothers me. You know, I go, where's, you know, because before you walk in there, it'd be, hey, how you doing? And I think that a lot of the vocal people are ones that kind of, you know, they're probably trying to do the right thing and everything, but they gotta realize, you know, that there's we're a little not as aggressive, I guess. I think you'd call that.
Yeah, Vermonters, I would say Vermonters were very accepting. They were like very libertarian in the sense of like, you know, kind of catch a can.
Yeah, we didn't
You
want
do your
to
thing,
dominate.
I'll do mine. Fiscally conservative, but kind of like, oh, you do your thing and that's okay. Or they might even think, oh, that's
Yeah.
kind of weird, but that's okay. You're doing your own thing. And so they were very less apt to, you know, want to go down and get into some argument with somebody, or
Yeah.
you know, they're like, you know what, I'll just stay up here and. You
That's
know.
the thing. Nobody, you know, people were just, they were busy. They had to, they had a busy lifestyle, and, you know, they were just there to try to do the right thing and then head back, you know, and turn it into a long type thing.
Mm.
But life is a form of, I mean, life is change, you know, so what's it gonna be like in another 20 or 30 years?
I'm sure the man that built that house, Stephen Rich, the
Yeah.
original dwelling where I live, wouldn't recognize when Dad was coming up. He
Yeah.
probably thought it
Because
was
that's-
strange, you know.
Most modern people are gonna have a flush toilet?
What the heck is that?
So it sounds like you really have tried to, you know, you modernize in the way that you need to live now and have healthcare and this and that, but
Yeah.
also keep the old values and a kind of lifestyle that stays.
You hit it right on the button.
Stays simple.
And I think for some younger folks around my age, it's becoming kind of more of a thing, and I'm hoping, you know, you see people trying to be a little more self-sufficient, you know, a little more kind of like, oh, I'm up in my little corner, you know. So I'm hoping that catches back on the old kind of
Yeah, a lot of
way of life.
kids your age, well, I'm not a kid anymore, but
Mhm.
would leave
Yeah.
the state. So it's nice
Right.
to see people staying and,
And some people that are coming up, even though they probably come from some area that's completely different, like, you know, they're coming up from New Jersey, but they're coming up here to seek something out, which is something that kind of ironically goes back to like our roots, you know, because everybody that came up here came from some different place at one point too, you know.
Yeah, we're all from someplace.
We're all from someplace
So,
different, right? I mean, so yeah, they're trying to get up here, get away from the rat race, and like Dad said, it's not like just coming up here to be instead of going from a small fish in a big pond, and they could be a big fish in a small pond up here. They're just looking to, you know, adopt some of those. You know, you see people getting sheep and stuff, like your neighbors up the road, and like young
Yeah.
folks that are interested in
yeah.
that kind of stuff.
there's a
like
lot of
going
good
back to the
people that-
heritage.
That have moved here, no doubt, you know.
Yeah, and adopting Vermont values. And,
Yeah,
you know, yeah.
Like if I was to move to another area, I'd have to say, well, you know, you try to blend in. And there's been some people that have come in and they don't know how to blend in. And you know, so they kind of like think, well, we might want to take over a little bit more, you know, or something. Blend in with the people, you know.
Mm-hmm.
The people have been here, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we have something here.
Yeah. There's something that everybody was attracted to when they came here that was, again, very unique to Vermont and was built by these people and, you know, generations of, it was the progression of generations, you know, of people like he was talking about, and then like they fell in love with the aesthetic of it. So, but like, even if you try to keep that aesthetic, but you lose all those roots of it, then it feels kind of fake, you know? It's hard to describe. It feels like a put on.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look, here's this antique looking thing, or here's this, you know, we have a couple cows just to, you know, it just lost all those little tiny things that made it, the realness, exactly.
And a lot of grants you hear, people getting grants, you know, you got, yeah, you get a grant to be a farmer and, you know, you got 2 goats and a pig, you know, or
Yeah,
whatever, you know, it's
you question, like, well, are you
it
coming
wasn't the hours of doing it.
Yeah, like the work put in.
Yeah.
That made it special, that made people, like, so connected to the land.
Satisfying because you
Yeah, it was
remember
like
you did it.
7
Dirt
days
under
a
your
week.
fingernails and,
Yeah.
like, sweat. There's literally your blood and sweat in the soil, you know?
And I think that anybody that grows up on a farm, they can say, okay, I put in a 12-hour, they don't have a farm anymore, they put in a 12-hour day. They're gonna say, hey, that's nothing, you know, tomorrow it might be 8 hours, you know, with a farm it wasn't, you know,
Right.
yeah, and,
Well, we're in an interesting time because, you know, people are now buying land in Vermont sight unseen.
Yeah.
Just to get away
Oh.
from, you know, people migrating away from.
we see it all the time.
I can't say that I blame them. I mean, I don't have any ill feelings towards somebody doing that. I would probably do the same damn thing.
Mm-hmm. So we just hope that they'll adapt to us.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, adaptation,
Yeah.
Yeah.
adaptation.
Or just so we don't lose our way completely.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big fear is like, you know, losing, you know, so it just becomes like a fairy tale rather than something that still is living and breathing. It just becomes kind of like a, oh, I heard that they actually used to, you know, and it's just like the history's there, but it's not tangible, you know. It's not, you can't go out and, you know, like this place for instance, I mean, how many of these are you gonna see? So many of them been built up, and
I know so many schoolhouses that were turned over into houses, you know. Back then, the people didn't think, oh, you say, hey, more power to you, you got a building, you know, turn it into a house, you know.
stuff like we're doing today, and you know, there is good stuff where they're preserving things and, you know, trying to avoid that too, so.
Yeah, so history is important.
Very,
Yeah, and it's nice to have, you know, people like you who kind of have, you know, rooted to this land with history and, you know, just as someone who, we've been here a long time now, but, it affects me
Yeah,
that you're here and valuing and doing this.
right, yeah.
I mean, I could even tell when I went off the road, you helped. There was just something, just talking about realness.
Oh,
You know?
thank you.
It wasn't a resentment and, you know, it's just like, this is what we do, we're neighbors and we help people out.
Yeah,
It was-
yeah. I always just put myself in the other person's shoes.
Mhm.
If I was in a ditch and like, oh crap, is this guy gonna be a grump about it or whatever, you know? Nobody wants to run into that guy, like, you know, so I'll just treat people how you want to be treated, right?
Yeah.
That's great. Wonderful.
Yeah.
One camera's dead.
One thing we're doing-
We killed them all.
So the camera's like, shut up, you guys.
I don't know why I want to ask you this, Brian, but is any last thing that you want to say about or to your wife and children?
Oh, jeez. Well, to my kids, I hope these things, you know, with doing things like this, I hope none of this gets lost. We're both trying hard to make sure that that doesn't happen. And also, I hope that they appreciate, you know, what my grandfather did and what my dad did, and hopefully what I'm doing. And yeah, and as far as my wife's concerned, it's, you know, wouldn't be possible without her either. You know, it's again, everything's family. You know, without that support system, like if I never met my wife or had kids, who the hell knows what I'll be doing left to my own. So
Because
I
it's
thank God
you
for
never
him
know.
every day. It's,
kind of one day at a time syndrome.
It's funny how life takes its turns.
yeah, Dad and I are surrounded by. He's got all, you know, he's got 2 daughters, 4 granddaughters, you know, all 2 sisters. We've been surrounded by women, and they keep us, you know. We have probably a wild streak inside of us that
Oh, definitely.
needs to be tamped down by good women.
Can't stay tame.
And God's blessed us with a bunch of good women to keep us like tamed, I guess. Yeah,
Put up with us.
put up with us. Yeah.